Hello, friends. It is the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up. It is on Monday and not Tuesday because I'm traveling, and I'm the only one that has the password. We've got John Galloway. Hello, John.
Hello.
Damo, how are you?
Hello.
Back from vacation?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm still, getting over jet lag and things.
No worries, no worries. And we got the fancy new camera in the conference room there. Show us the remote control.
Yes, I am zoomed all the way in. And I'm not even going to show how far zoomed out it is because it took me 5 minutes to figure out how to make it look like this.
I was hoping for a dramatic zoom out shot, but
I will practice for next time.
We'll zoom out. That'll be our exit.
Yes, there you go.
I'd like a tracking shot through all of Building 44.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So, Damo, so it is Monday. It is the second week of January. What kind of stuff are we working on here?
Oh, it's 2015 already, isn't it?
Yeah, we shipped this yet?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we done yet? What's taking so long?
It's up on GitHub. Doesn't that count?
Lazy sods. So lots is happening. Obviously, we still have people trickling back in from leave. We're just like any other team. People go away and enjoy the holidays. But we've got a couple of big things that are happening that I'll tell people about this morning because why not? This is what this is for. We've added a milestone. So previously we've been tracking towards our RC1 release. That, as of the end of last week, is now going to be called Beta 3. So we're going to be releasing an extra beta. FYI, Beta 2 is imminent. So the Beta 2 release will be out very shortly. That's as much as I'll say, but it will be out very shortly. Beta 3 will come next, obviously. It was going to be an RC. We decided we need to give ourselves another release to focus on all the good stuff like fundamentals. There's a bunch of features that we're coming in a bit late that we really want to be excellent when they land in our final 1.0, so we're going to give ourselves some more time to do that. And then sort of overall, we're at this stage now where we kind of have a good understanding of what the core features for our 1.0 release will be. And it has expanded a little bit. We've kind of we've brought in some more stuff that we felt was missing in terms of ASP.NET 5 being a good upgrade from previous versions of ASP.NET. Now, of course, ASP.NET 5 is itself, in a lot of ways, a new stack. So in some ways, it's not an upgrade. But in terms of features and concept compatibility, we wanted to bring some stuff across. So we've given ourselves a little extra time for that. And we need a little extra time to focus on good stuff like performance and reliability, making sure that the features that we do have work together well, doing a bunch of API reviews. And so, yeah, so that's happening. So we've got an RC1 that will come after this new release that we're terming Beta 3. But the next release that people will be able to get their hands on is Beta 2 in terms of, public releases to NuGet. Of course, as always, you can just go and grab nightly releases from our MyGet feed, assuming we haven't introduced any breaking changes that break the version of the Visual Studio tooling that you have. So there's that. RC1 will follow later at some date after the Beta 3 comes out. So that's the big thing. We're going through some other interesting stuff. We're revisiting things like naming. APIs are being reviewed. We're looking at the names of things to make sure that makes sense. We have a lot of moving parts in ASP.NET 5. Some people may have seen that slide I put together that I talked to, which is kind of that vertical stack of the pieces and how I relate them to the old pieces and then the new pieces. Some of the names of those things we're revisiting just to make sure that they really make sense. And if you're coming to this for the first time, you can go, okay, yeah, that name makes sense. I understand where it fits in the stack. While taking into consideration the larger context and ecosystem of .NET. Now that we're adding cross-platform, we want to make sure that names don't clash with existing things on other platforms and those type of things. So you may see some of the command line tools have their names changed as we go through that process. Razor, I'm very happy to say that while I was away, we've made some really good progress on things like the tag helper content model API change. So the beta release that people have been using has runtime support for tag helpers, and we shipped some tag helpers in an MVC package, which I believe is referenced by default in the project template. You just have to sort of then set up the project to use tag helpers. There was a pending design change that didn't make it into the beta that is now co-complete in a branch, which sort of drastically changes the content model of tag helpers to make them easier to use, easier to develop, I should say. Tag helpers themselves, you don't have to worry about attributes to declare your content model and stuff now. B, and more importantly, adds features to tag helpers such that I can create a tag helper that will conditionally execute its children. So, for example, we have some new tag helpers coming along, like a cache tag helper, which is in a pull request in the MVC repo right now, so you can go and have a look at it. And that links to the issue that specs it out. A cache tag helper, as you can expect, it's an element called cache. You can put it around a block in your Razor page, and then that block will only execute once, and the resultant HTML will be served from cache, the new iCache system, on subsequent requests. Now that element supports all the normal things you'd expect cache and ASP.NET to do, so you can vary by a header, you can vary by cookie, you can vary by user, you can do a custom vary by, you can set expiration policy, all just via the element and its attributes. So that's kind of nice, and that was enabled by this new content model feature in Razor. Then we have another one coming along called environment, which lets me wrap a block of HTML with an environment tag helper. And then I can say this HTML is only applicable in the environment called production, or the environment called staging, or these 3 environments. Very simple. It's just a conditional helper, a conditional block, but very useful when you're doing things like, hey, I need to render these JavaScript or CSS resources to the page, but when I'm in production, I want you to use like a minified JavaScript link, but when I'm in development, please use all these expanded links. So that kind of enables that scenario. And then talking about JavaScript and CSS for a moment, we've got some helpers coming along as well to do things like have a CDN JavaScript or CSS link be used in production, and have a fully exploded list of JavaScript links be used in development or staging or whatever your environments are. So we're building more helpers other than just the form helpers that we've built so far. So we've got I think it's a link helper for the CSS reference. We've got a script tag helper coming that does things like CDN. It does things like star. So you can have a script helper set its source attribute to star.js, and it will find all the JavaScript files in the whatever path you give it with the wildcard, and then it will render a script tag for each one. So this is designed to be used in conjunction with things like grunt and gulp, and it's a replacement conceptually for the runtime bundling and minification system we had in the previous version of ASP.NET and Razor. So rather than doing all that at runtime now, you create your JavaScript files as you normally do in Visual Studio, you minify and combine them using something like Grunt, which will have templates for in an upcoming release, so that will just work out of the box. And then the markup in your page is set up to use these tag helpers so that you use the appropriate combined or minified or CDN version of those files, depending on what environment you're on. If you want to see examples of what all this markup looks like, just go onto the GitHub repo, go into the MVC repository, and look in the issues there. If you just search for like tag space helper space script, you'll see all the issues that are and the specs related around that. And by all means, give your feedback. So I'm really looking forward to those coming online. I've been waiting for that. The other thing is tooling for tag helpers is coming along too. So in an upcoming tooling release, we'll get support for tag helper IntelliSense. So you get tag helper names dropping down in your HTML editor. The attributes, obviously, for those will light up as well. And then, obviously, when you use Razor code inside those attributes, you'll get full IntelliSense for those from a C# point of view as well. So lots of stuff happening in Razor, which is great. For the rest of the system, lots of stuff happening as normal as well. Project system has gone through a bunch of change. We've got a lot more tooling support. So we've got things like the browser switching is working again, back with the new ASP.NET project system. But furthermore, we've now got a nice, easy way to switch between things like when I want to run the application from VS, do I want to run core CLR versus the desktop CLR, the full CLR? That's now just a toggle in the toolbar in the same sort of drop-down menu that you use to change browser. And then you can save profiles so that I can say, hey, I want to have a profile called foo, and that profile will launch Chrome. It will use the core CLR. It'll set these 3 environment variables. It'll use this command from my project.json file, and it will use a web listener instead of IS Express. And you can just save that as a profile, give it a name, and then hit the go button in Visual Studio, and that will run. And you can create more than one profile, so you can just drop down that thing and say, hey, let's run this command, and now let's run this command. So you can see what you'll see in the next VS release is a lot more of the new features from a runtime point of view are now having their tooling equivalents light up so that you can have nice VS gestures for using those features rather than what we have right now, which is mostly command line. So excited about that.
No, that's okay. So the tag helper thing, that's in Razor. Do we have web pages as well? Is that happening?
No, yeah, so it is going to happen. It won't happen for RTM. So right now, the plan for web pages is that will ship in hopefully the first point release after we hit 1.0 RTM. And the reason for that is simply that we want to make sure that the foundation of MVC and Razor tag helpers and the other features in Razor are solid and address those scenarios first, and then we're going to build the new web pages on top of that stack. And we don't want to try and do them at the same time because we only have limited resources and limited time. So we feel that's the right sort of chapter progression in this story. Let's get the new MVC6 and the new Razor core features working really, really well. And then once we've got those out the door, let's put a bunch of people on looking at how to build a new web pages on top of that. Now that said, there are a couple of prototypes floating around in GitHub branches already. If people go digging, you can see there's a couple of web pages prototypes where we've just toyed with some ideas of how we would use the new Roslyn compilation, the new pre-compilation for Razor we've built, tag helpers, new act directives, so you can specify things like routes at the top of your web pages page, how we would look at building that using the new extensibility in MVC and Razor to come up with a new and better web pages system. So it's definitely happening. It just won't be there for the very first 1.0 RTM release.
All right, cool. Any community stuff right now at Galloway? It's probably a little early given that we moved this a day.
Yeah, I do have one question that I got. Matt Kerr asked me on Twitter, and I get this from time to time, and it's just kind of general, like, hey, I'm starting a new project. Should I consider using ASP.NET 5 for it? And, I mean, given like what you've been talking about, there's definitely things are changing. It's beta. There's another beta coming, but, I mean, are people allowed to? Can you talk about that?
So that's a great question. There's a couple of ways to answer it. So in terms of functionality and stability and those type of things, we don't have a Go Live license. Like Microsoft has concept of Go Live licenses in the EULAs that ship with their products. We don't have one of those for ASP.NET 5 yet. Currently, the plan is we will have a Go Live license for a release before RTM. I'm not sure which one. It will not be a beta, all right? It'll be one of the RCs when we get to it. So that's currently the plan. But that, as all that means is that Microsoft legally allows you to, if you use the distributed version by NuGet, which is bound by that EULA, then you're legally allowed to, in terms of the software distribution agreement, to use that product in production scenarios. And if you do so, you can call product support services and get help if you run into any type of issue. So that doesn't exist yet, so you'd have to take that into consideration, which means technically if you want to use ASP.NET 5 in a production sort of scenario right now, you'd have to compile it yourself from source because it would be a violation of the EULA to use blah, 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 but whatever. But so because it's open source, that's really easy to do now.
Right.
But we are still changing. So I would say if you're going to do that, you have to do it understanding that because we haven't locked down APIs and the features fully yet, you will run into breaking changes when you go to upgrade to the next pre-release. But I kind of hope that by now people understand that. And you're not going to be huge changes. You'll update the packages, you'll compile, you might get some errors, you go through and work through those compilation errors, and then you're off to the races again. But again, we haven't finished that full push on security and performance and reliability and stability and those type of things yet. So you would be taking that risk as well. My advice would be people should certainly be looking at it right now to understand what type of applications you will be able to build with ASP.NET 5 on its first release versus what you won't be able to. Because there's a whole bunch of features that simply aren't there and perhaps will never be there because they relate to legacy technology. And so there will still always be a case for when you're doing applications that require that support, you would have to use the full .NET framework and one of the older versions of ASP.NET to get that support. But if you're just looking at building a pure web application using sort of modern techniques and your interoperability story is based on HTTP, so you can use Web API and RESTful type stuff or standard sort of web server stuff, then you can definitely take a look and make that decision based on what experience you have. It's not a straightforward answer at this point. Like any pre-release software, use at your own risk. Yeah. So I'm seeing some questions pop in on the Q&A here now, so maybe we can answer some of those.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so first one, when will there be a .NET binary package for OS X? Not sure yet. We don't have anything to announce on that yet. As soon as we have something to announce, we'll be sure to say it here.
Right, someday.
Someday. I would hope this year sometime.
Isn't the goal to have a package for a product apt-get, if we can, for Linux, and brew or whatever the appropriate thing is on Mac someday?
Absolutely. So, like, I think we have a homebrew now that's based on Mono, and there's a Docker image that's based on Mono as well right now. Eventually, obviously, once we release our .NET redistributable for OS X and Linux, which is based on .NET Core, there will be that as a base available as well. And you'll be able to very simply go to a command line and install ASP.NET 5 on a Mac, and you'll get our .NET Core redistributable and that sort of thing. Currently, that's not planned for 1.0 RTM, but it is planned for a period shortly after that. So when we have more to tell, I will tell it. How many people are working in the ASP.NET team? Some, not as many as you might think. This question comes up a bit actually. It's anyway. I mean, the ASP.NET team, if you consider that includes like NV Framework, which sits right next to me here, they're part of the ASP.NET team organizationally, and the Visual Studio Web Tooling team, which is also part of the ASP.NET team organizationally. Then you're looking at upward, towards 40 developers, engineers, and then 40 to 50. And then a bunch of program managers, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 program managers with that as well. But as I said, that covers all of the ASP.NET runtime pieces. It also covers all the tooling in terms of Visual Studio and command line tooling. It covers NV Framework. It covers some of the Azure tooling as well, publishing and command line tooling for Azure, cross-platform SDK. So it covers quite a lot of stuff. Oh wow, there's lots of questions coming in now.
Maybe we can lightning round through them.
Yep, you mentioned Razor pre-compiling. What is the plan there? Will there be an easy pre-compilation system? Yes, so we have a pre-compilation system for Razor now. It's available in some of the builds we're using right now, and that will be in the next round of the templates, in the next round of the releasing. So basically, when the app compiles using the KRE, the part of ASP.NET 5 that does all the compilation and running of your app, Razor now has a chance to play in that stage. So while your application code is compiling, it can compile the views in the same, quote-unquote assembly. Whereas opposed to today, the views are always compiled separately as a different assembly that references your application, and they actually become two independent assemblies. With the new system, we can compile it all into one blob, and that's working right now. So you'll see that soon. Are there any third-party developers working on ASP.NET? So we have some external contributors who are just going via GitHub. We have a bunch of third-party vendors who are building or prototyping new versions of their products on top of ASP.NET 5. So they're not working on ASP.NET 5, but they're working on new stuff. But in terms of actual core development, everyone is a first-party developer if they're working on the. Everyone has commit access to the repositories as a first-party developer. And that's all the questions, I think.
Cool.
Did we get them all? Cool. Will it be possible to develop modules? Develop a blog module and I add it to multiple projects? Absolutely. I mean, that's a very large question. It all depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to plug into. But you'll absolutely be able to develop something that plugs in. It's a NuGet package. You bring in your app and it lights up and off you go. Is EF7 going to be ready for ASP.NET 5 RTM? Yes, it will be. Is ASP.NET Web Forms outdated when compared? Sorry, go on.
No, keep going, dude. Fast as you can.
Is ASP.NET Web Forms outdated when compared to MVC? That's a bit of a loaded question. I mean, it really depends. Outdated is a very subjective term. I'd say no if they're built for different things and they different problems differently. Web Forms does a whole bunch of stuff that ASP.NET 5 will never do, and if you are attracted by that and that solves a problem for you, then knock yourself out. We're going to continue building great stuff for Web Forms. How will it be a .NET? Okay, this thing orders by pluses, so it makes it difficult because the new ones aren't.
I think you hit them all.
Yeah, they vote them up, and you can.
Any planned changes with areas? Areas will be supported. I don't know of any specific changes to the areas feature set right now, but it will be supported as it was in MVC 5. in MVC6. So, cool.
Cool. Did that get them all?
That's all of them so far. So, yep.
All right, cool. Well, as always, folks can put questions in the comments on YouTube. They can tweet us. We will do the best we can to get to them, but we've got people coming at us from Facebook and from Twitter and from Google Plus and all that kind of stuff. But we will always try to be available to y'all. And feel free, if you have community stuff, blog posts, or interesting stuff going on with ASP.NET 5, vNext, tell John Galloway, and he'll assemble them into the community spotlight, and we'll talk about them next week. And again, we're alternating, so this is going from afternoon to from morning to afternoon. So next week, this will be in the afternoon on Tuesday. Thank you very much.